Labor Talks was John DeRozier, recorded at Chippewa Valley Community Television in Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Hello and welcome to Labor Talks. My name is John DeRozier, and Labor Talks is a monthly one-hour program that will cover working family issues, labor, unions, and anything else we damn well want to talk about. Now, as I said before, this is our first program, and on that note, I'd like to introduce Jack Connell, President of the Greater West Central Area Labor Council. Jack, thank you, and welcome.
All right. Glad to be here, John.
Okay. I'm glad you're glad to be here. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. Now, seriously, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your involvement with unions, please?
I sure can. I'm a state employee. I started working at the University in Eau Claire in 1993. I joined a union, went to my first meeting in December of 93, and been going ever since. I became a union steward for the local. A little later on, I became the chief steward. A little later on in my career there, I became vice president, and I'm currently president of the Wisconsin State Employees Union Local 1914. I became a delegate to the Greater West Central Area Labor Council, which at that time was called the Eau Claire Area Labor Council, in about 2000, the year 2000. After a year, I served on the executive board for 3 terms, 3 two-year terms, and then there was a reorganization with the AFL-CIO for their labor councils in the state, and I became president of that organization. And I've been president for 7 years.
And what have unions done for you and your family?
The greatest thing that I got, before I worked on a union job, you really didn't have the security that you had with a union job. I was an automotive mechanic. That was my trade before I started with the state. And everybody was on their own as far as when you went to for your annual review. Some guys would get a dime, some guys would get a nickel, some might get a quarter, but it was never consistent. And with the union, you knew that if you're doing equal work, you're going to get equal pay. That was great. Also, we have better benefits. We have guaranteed benefits because of the union negotiated sick leave, health insurance, vacation, personal holidays, and a good pension system. So, I mean, the pension system was the big draw for me when I entered state service, because when I was in a private sector, there was no pension.
And let's see, what issues are of prime importance to you as a union member?
As a union member, I'm a public employee, so number one for me is collective bargaining. Act 10, which was passed a little over 3 years ago, stripped public employees of collective bargaining. And that has been a real hindrance to organize our members and to have a voice in the workplace. Outside of that, there's a list a mile long of issues. The greatest issue that's affecting, one of the greatest issues that affects everyone is the minimum wage. Minimum wage is too low, and that affects all working families in the whole country. Some states are progressive and they're raising the minimum wage. Wisconsin has refused to do that. The next big piece is health care. We need affordable health care for all working families, and without taking the federal funds for Medicaid that was offered, our legislature made a huge mistake, and an awful lot of families are suffering because of that.
Well, you've given us a pretty good description of how collective bargaining works and why you would support collective bargaining. Could you give us a description of how Act 10 has affected the working relationship between public employees and UW Eau Claire?
I don't quite understand your question, but oh, you mean
Act 10?
How Act 10 affected the employees and management at the campus?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All
I
right.
didn't phrase that question.
Okay. We used to have a contract. We had a book that was about that thick, and everything that most transactions were in the book. not everything that was in the book the union agreed with, and not everything that was in the book management agreed with, but it was a compromise. That's how you reach an agreement. And we use consensus bargaining when we negotiated our contracts. So if it was a transfer issue, we had transfer rights, we had seniority. We no longer have seniority because of Act 10, because that was in our contract. That was contract language. Our transfer opportunities are gone now. Now, if you want to look at another job, you have to apply for that job and compete with other individuals. Seniority doesn't matter, so you can't move from one job in the same pay range to another.
Go ahead.
Those are the two big things.
Negotiations?
Negotiations, where now we were told that if we would have recertified, we could negotiate wages only up to the rate of inflation. Well, that's not negotiation. They're going to say, well, this is what you get and that's it. And currently that's what we have. We used to negotiate the portion of our retirement. We used to negotiate the portion of our health insurance deductibles and our health insurance co-pays. That's gone. So now it's you take this and this is what you get.
Now, I've learned, I was on the county board, and there were those on the county board who did not want to negotiate one bit with the public employees. There were also those of us who want to keep good employees. So we sat down and we did what we could within the letter of the law. We had to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But we did what we could for those public employees. Do you have that relationship with management at UW-Eau Claire?
At UW-Eau Claire, I feel that they value their employees. We've got 26 buildings. We've got a lot of different managers. We've got a lot of different directors. So we do have a lot of different employers, if you want to call it that, or supervisors, management. But when you talk to the chancellor, he does value the employees and our efforts. He knows that we are a service industry. We do not provide, we don't make anything. Well, we do make things. We make very intelligent young men and women when they leave the campus. That's what we make. But we are a service industry. We're not for profit, and it costs so much to educate a student. I work in the maintenance department, so I'm one of the behind the scenes people that the students don't often see, but it's one of the necessities. Again, we have 26 buildings, so it takes a lot of people to keep everything running.
Now, there are those employers, and I'm referring directly to your chancellor, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I have to ask this question. Is the chancellor somebody who gives you lip service, or does he really mean it? Is he the real deal?
Jim's only been there a little over a year, but I've met with him a couple times, and I think he's the real deal. He honestly, I believe he honestly has our best interests in mind. He's very accessible. We had a discussion a couple months ago about some issues that were on campus, and he just told us straight out, this is what's happening, and he gave us his opinion on it, and a final decision was made about 3 weeks ago that benefited some of the employees on campus. So I mean, it was a positive experience.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, as you stated, unions support raising the minimum wage. There are those who oppose raising the minimum wage. Without mentioning any names, could you tell us who opposes raising the minimum wage, and also how would raising the minimum wage affect the economy?
Probably one of the organizations that does not want to see the minimum wage raised is Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce. That's the one that I'm pretty sure is twisting arms to say, no, we can't do this because we can't afford this. When my daughter was working as a waitress, she was making $2.35 an hour. That's a tipped wage. I mean, and that's nowhere near a living wage. Raising the minimum wage would help all working families and stimulate the economy immediately. If you're making $9 an hour and all of a sudden you go to 10.10, you've got an extra $1.10 an hour, 40 hours, you got $40 in your pocket. People at that level, they spend that money. So that's going to hit Main Street instantly. It's not going to get tied up in a bank. It's not going to be put into an IRA. It's not going to be tucked under somebody's mattress. That money is going to hit Main Street. And the thing that I've always felt is that if you want to stimulate the economy, you start at the bottom. You don't start at the top with tax breaks. You got to start at the bottom and get the people that spend the money, get them more money. If you value, that's what drives the economy. I didn't buy a new car because of the hits that I took on my health insurance and my pension. So I did not buy a new car. So I'm driving my same car. I had planned to every 5 years buy a new car. Well, that's not going to happen now. I have to work on keeping my old one going a little bit longer, and I put that off. So, but when you give, I'm not going to say give. When those workers that earn that money, if they get more money, they're going to put that back in the economy, and it's going to go in instantly.
So it's pretty safe to say that that extra $40 a week would not be going into some offshore account in the Bahamas.
I would not hope so.
Okay. I had to ask that question.
The other thing is that, though, people that are earning minimum wage or $8 an hour or $9 an hour or $10 an hour do not have an opportunity to put money into an IRA or a CD for their retirement. So the odds of them ever achieving a reasonable retirement where they can relax after working many, many years is minimal. We have too many employees that are making minimum wage, working 2 jobs, some are working 3 jobs. Working families are really taking it in the chin. Had the minimum wage kept up with inflation, we all know that it would have been over $10 an hour right now today. And again, there are states that are progressive. Minnesota just raised their minimum wage. I think the city of Seattle just raised their minimum wage. So, I mean, the opportunities are available, and we need progressive legislators that understand that and know that working families is the driving force to create more jobs and stimulate the economy.
It would also help to keep restaurants open.
I'm sure.
We've seen a couple go down lately.
Yep.
That's not good.
Yep.
If working families, and you've heard this question before, I know you have because I've asked it, but if working families elect a majority of state senators and representatives, what would you want them to have to be their top priorities?
I think the first thing would be I would encourage them to accept the federal money for Medicaid. Number one, you get more people with health insurance and better coverage, and they're not going to have money tied up in going to the hospital or to the urgent care. That's going to be number one. Both Luther and Sacred Heart or Marshfield Clinic in the area, they're both closing some satellite offices, and they're laying off medical staff. I think if they had accepted the Medicaid money, if Wisconsin would have accepted that money, that they would have more money coming in for patient care, and they'd be able to keep some of these satellite offices open and keep some more employees employed.
Now, Jack, you're not being critical of Governor Walker, are you?
No, I'm not.
Okay. I thought I would try to slide that in.
Well, that's the first thing they got to do is take the Medicaid money. Number two is raise the minimum wage. You got to raise the minimum wage. I mean, that benefits everyone. If you're a bookstore and you say, well, I've got 3 employees and I'm paying minimum wage, and if it goes to $10 an hour, I'm going to have to lay one person off. And well, what happens when those other people that are making minimum wage, all of a sudden they can afford to buy a book? So I mean, it's the economy is not one business; it's all the businesses, all combined. It's education, it's manufacturing, it's the mom and pop stores, it's the restaurants, it's everything. That's what makes an economy.
Governor Walker and his allies have referred to union members as thugs. Now, my wife can call me a thug, but he can't. That's just my sense of humor. Yet it's Governor Walker and his allies who have refused to negotiate with union members. I don't see us as thugs. I really don't. Your response?
I think the term thugs actually came from the company thugs that used to beat up and kill union workers that were on strike. I think that's where the term thug came from.
I know that's where it came from.
I don't think it was a union thug. I think they were the company thugs. That's where it all came from. So,
oh, yeah.
I've got a coworker of mine, wonderful younger woman, and she's my union thug. So I mean, the idea that during the demonstrations in Madison in February and March of 2011 that paid union thugs were brought in. Most of the people that I met in Madison were from Wisconsin. There was a few people that came in. We had union brothers and sisters from Iowa and Illinois, Michigan, Minnesota. They wanted to come and see what was actually happening. But the majority of the people that were there demonstrating, peacefully demonstrating, were from Wisconsin.
I agree. The fact that somebody does not want to sit down and negotiate with you, that to me is symptomatic of being a thug. It really is. I don't want to talk to you. You're no good. Who's being the thug here,
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. The name calling doesn't get you anywhere. If you're trying to negotiate a contract, you have to be civil. You have to understand each point of view, each side's point of view, and know that you are going to reach a compromise to get an end result. And if you don't compromise, you will not achieve an end result. And corporations currently are taking control of our political system and our judicial system. The election cycle that we're in currently, we're going to see attack ads. They're already started, but they're going to get more intense, and they're going to get nastier. Corporations tend to have a lot of money, and they can throw a lot of money at TV ads and radio, and try to discredit some progressive candidates that have the best interests of working families in their sights. I mean, that's the working men and women and working families are the electors, not the corporations.
My dad worked on the railroad. This was many, many years ago. And they had to strike for any pay raises or benefits. They had to. And it was the company that went out and hired thugs to beat up the union members. And now it's the companies who are calling us thugs. It's just remarkable. It really is. I don't want to call them liars, but they sure know how to beat the hell out of the truth. They really do.
Yeah, yes, they do.
Yeah. One of the things that really, really ticks me off, and I better not say exactly what I'm thinking or we'll be off the air. But we're, like you said, we're going to be hit with an awful lot of ads, and they'll be outright lies.
Many of them.
And that drives me up a wall. It simply does. What can unions do to reach the average voter to tell the truth? What can we do?
Our plan is that through the Greater West Central Area Labor Council, is to go knock on doors, and we knock on union households We knock on their door. We tell them we're from the union. We're their brother and sister. And we talk about the issues that affect them and the issues that are important in this campaign cycle. I've done door knocks, not this last Saturday, but the 2 Saturdays before that. So I've been working in Eau Claire. We're going to expand our reach to Chippewa and Cadott, Colfax. We're going to start spreading out because our organization covers 9 counties. So we're going to look for the biggest bang for the buck. So we're going to go to the metro areas in our 9 counties and talk to voters and get the feel for what they think is important and talk about the issues. And we've screened candidates, so we've looked at candidates in the Senate races, in the state Senate races, and in the state Assembly races. So we've talked to these candidates. We brought them in, and we talked about the issues that are important to us. Good public education, good jobs with benefits. Having a voice in the workplace, and then the ability to retire with dignity. These are critical issues for working families.
Okay. What's been the response overall?
It's been pretty positive. And as we get into this election cycle, towards the end, it's going to be just a reminder to make sure that everyone gets out to vote. That's critical. The bigger turnout we have, the better chance we have of electing progressive candidates that will support working family values.
Now, obviously, I support community television. All right? That's why we're here.
Yep.
One of the things I'm trying to accomplish is to get people elected to the state legislature who will support bringing in revenues at the state level to community television. Put it to you this way. I have a hunch you'll be supporting those candidates who will try to go back to the days when the state provided revenues for community television.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts, please. I think it's an issue. I really do.
Well, it is an issue. There's many issues. Public radio and television is another issue. And bringing broadband to rural Wisconsin is another issue. These are the things that need to be done. But you can't afford to do it when you give corporate tax breaks and let corporations not pay taxes in this state. They need to pay their fair share. They're here with us. And we supply a workforce and a very reliable, intelligent workforce that's trained. They need to supply something too, and that's tax revenues. The working families is paying more taxes than the corporations do. It's backwards. In Minnesota, the corporate tax is higher than they pay a bigger share. Public funding for education is getting worse and worse in this state. When I started at the university in 1993, about 35% of the university's operating budget at Eau Claire, about 35% was state-funded GPR dollars. This year, it's close to 20%. So when you take 15% of your funding out of higher education, and then that hurts. It hurts the ability to stay current and to have good educators and good support staff. The state has always been pretty proud about having good employees. The county also, the city, they want good employees. They want the best employees. And if you want that, and you want to support those employees and their families, then you gotta pay for it, and that all takes money. But when you give corporate tax breaks out, you're cutting education, you're cutting places like this, public education and public television and radio. It just goes on and on and on. And the corporations right now, they're holding most of the cards because they don't pay the money, but they got the money. They don't pay taxes, so they got all this money that they can throw at campaigns and slam ads. It's a terrible world we're living in right now.
I've talked to people who are critical of public employees because, A, they say, well, what about those people, those public employees who are making $100,000 a year? And I try to tell them that's the exception. How many public employees do you know make $100,000 a year? Any?
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah, I know some on campus that do. But that's, they have more responsibility than I do.
Okay.
I don't make $100,000 a year. So.
Are those people in management positions?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I don't know if there's any teaching staff or professors that make that kind of money. I would doubt it, but there may be. But if they do, that's because they're bringing in grant funds, research funds.
Yep.
But there again, if you want to, on a university setting, if you want to bring in high quality professors that can do the research, it costs money to do that.
One of the reasons people in public employees such as yourself, you settle for wages that could be a lot better in exchange for health and retirement benefits. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are those people who say, well, I have to pay for my own health insurance. I have to pay for my own retirement. But they knew that going into the trade or going into the business.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that folks like you or city, county employees, they stayed with their jobs because even though they got low pay, the benefits were so much better. And they were told, these will be your benefits, period.
Mm-hmm.
And they're being taken away. Are you coming across this type of thing?
Well, when I started state service, I took over a $2 an hour cut in pay to go from the private sector into the public sector and in a state position. But I did that knowing that health insurance was there and a pension was there. Mm-hmm. So I weighed the two packages and I says I'm going to go into state service. So.
One last question. No applause, please. I just like to say that. Anything else? Is there anything you'd like to add? Are there any questions that I haven't asked that you think I should have asked?
Well, the viewers might want to know what the Greater West Central Area Labor Council is, and what we are a group of AFL-CIO affiliate unions, local unions, from Clark, Eau Claire, Chippewa, Dunn, Barron, Pierce, Pepin, Polk, and St. Croix counties. We've got about 12,000 families that are in our 9-county jurisdiction. And we have firefighters, AFSCME employees, which are public employees, electricians, plumbers and pipe fitters, sheet metal workers, machinists. We have teachers. So we all get together, and we meet once a month here in Eau Claire, and we talk about the issues that are affecting each local union or each individual union, and we talk about those issues, and because we want to know what's happening, because if they're singling out, they'd never do that, single out one union over another, but well, maybe they do. We need to know about that because we need to bring that to the attention of legislators in our area to say this is wrong. Right now, the firefighters are having a heck of a time all over the state with their health insurance. They're saying if you don't pay half of your retirement, we're going to make your health insurance $3,000 per person deductible, or $6,000. And I think in Racine they're talking $12,000 for a deductible for your health insurance. So, they've got them over a barrel because they cannot negotiate health insurance. All they can negotiate is wages. So, this is horrible. And we've got a governor who has come right out and said divide and conquer is the way to do this. And that's exactly what they're doing. So our organization, we meet monthly. We discuss these issues, what's happening, and we try to figure out how we can get people to understand that we're not the bad guys, you know. Whether you're a public sector union employee or a private sector, it doesn't matter. We all have the same issues, but it affects, and the big thing is that what affects us really affects working families that are not represented by a union, because they don't have any rights at all. So I mean, they're all at will employees. So when we lose our benefits, those that don't have any will never get them.
True. True.
So that's kind of our organization in a nutshell, is that we look out for more than just our own.
Yeah, because if union members get a pay raise, then that pay raise is going to also go to non-union members, so that the employer can keep those non-union members. So in effect, the union members are helping the non-union members.
Well, when Uniroyal was still in Eau Claire, Uniroyal was a big driver of wages in Eau Claire, because when the Uniroyal employees got a raise, that drove up everyone, because then you had to compete with that. So everybody was competing with that wage. So it helped the entire economy. So Eau Claire was sitting pretty good. Unfortunately, we only had three major employers back then. We had the paper mill, Uniroyal, and the university. So some other communities are more diversified and have more manufacturing capabilities and factories. So I mean, they're a little bit better off. But for years, when Uniroyal, you know, they set the benchmark. This is, you know, if you want a job, this is what it's going to cost if you want to work in Eau Claire. So I mean, they set a pretty good benchmark. But you know who benefited from that? Everyone.
I agree.
No one was left out. No one was left out. Car dealers did well. Furniture salesmen and furniture companies did well. Everybody did well.
When we had Local 19 here, the local actually really looked after its female employees. I know this. I saw it. I wrote a paper on it. And it was the rubber workers who first went to bat for women employees. Equal pay for equal work. And we're still fighting that battle. Now, I talked with one young person, and he said that we need to consider more than just the wages. They're important, but we need to consider women's rights as well. And I said, the unions are going to bat for women who feel that, who are being stepped on. True or false?
That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, it's everything that it takes to raise a family, and if it's health insurance or health care or availability of health care or sick leave or maternity leave, that's got to be available, and it's got to be available equally.
I think unions, one of the things unions need to point out is the fact that you don't need the government coming between a woman and her doctor. I think that's wrong, very wrong.
Yeah, the government shouldn't become between anyone and their doctor. You know.
I catch hell when I try to tell my wife what to do. So,
see, I've
Mr.
learned
Walker,
not to do that.
I learned that a long time ago. But seriously, I just don't like the idea of the government telling my wife what to do. I don't. It makes me mad.
I had a conversation with a coworker one time at the university, and that we were talking about women's pay, and I said, well, when we had a contract, a union contract, I said women's pay wasn't an issue. They got paid the same as a man, equal pay for equal work. If you open up the book, what's the pay range? How many years you been? That's how much money you're going to make. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any problem with that. A lot of other people do. But a union contract, when you've got a contract, there's no disparity on pay between race, creed, sex, anything. It's equal pay for equal work.
Anything you want to add? This is your chance, Jack. You can even tell me what you think of me right now.
The only thing I want to add is that we are coming up on the probably most important election of our lives for state government. We have an opportunity to elect a progressive governor, a lieutenant governor that will not work for the governor but will work for the people of the state, and state Senate and Assembly candidates that will support working family values. And it is utterly important that everyone who's eligible to vote make sure you're registered and get out and vote.
One thing you forgot to mention, the Greater West Central Area Labor Council meets 7 p.m. on the second Thursday of the month at the Labor Temple on Birch Street, 2233 Birch Street, and the public is welcome. And that includes people from community television as well. Thank you very much.
Chippewa Valley Community Television is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, you can contact us by calling 715-839-5067 or on the web at www.cbctv.org.